Hello, good evening and welcome to my humble model railway, Bedstead Junction. Tonight we're going to have a Lima running session. Okay, the locomotives and the two rail cars, all four are made by Lima, an interesting company, Italian actually. Now we're just going to bring the first locomotive out, or at least the rail car out, and we'll have a little talk about her. Here she comes, a lovely diesel rail car in BR green. We're going to zoom out slightly. We want to watch all the action on the actual railway. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think we'll just change the points now. And then we'll watch her go around the track. Now I do believe these rail cars were actually brought out in the 1930s, and they were used for various duties like parcel trains and fast intercity services. First experimental rail cars really brought in by the Great Western. I think they were drawn by the early 1960s, mainly because they came out with more modern diesel multiple units. These were seen also on branch lines like the Strawberry line. So they must have been quite a novelty to be first seen on the Great Western. And then again on the western region of British Rail after the war. And these Lima rail cars, okay, they don't have as much detail as more modern offerings. But bear in mind, when I bought this, I think this cost me about £30. Okay, new, but obviously, obviously allowing for inflation, I think probably the price would still be less than 100. Okay, but very, very nice little locomotive here, going around, or rail car, let's say. We'll have a closer look at her in a moment. Now, really, in my honest opinion, some of the problems for the railways were beginning way before they actually came to a head in the Beeching report. Okay, I think probably what happened was that the World War II and nationalisation actually kind of in some way kind of masked the problems. Now, the first problem was that cars were becoming more and more available. I mean, certainly pre-war, you'd be looking at cars like the Morris Bonos and the Austin 7. And of course, that would have put a lot of the local services possibly under pressure. Also, there was increased competition from buses and coaches. So the railways, certainly for the more lightly used branches, they were looking at ways of actually making them pay. And they tried steam rail cars, they tried auto coaches, going 14XX locomotives. You probably saw my video about the 14XXs. And these were all ways in which the British rail, the actual railways were trying to compete with the rise of road transport. And also, of course, lorries were improving in their design. And also another thing which certainly brought everything to a head was the motorway building programme. All lots of things which put the railways under an awful lot of pressure. Now when these rail cars first came out, they were more of a curvy design. Okay, this is basically the Mark II version of the diesel rail car, and the original version were nicknamed Flying Bananas. Say the first really of the Great Western rail cars, or ones that were designed for the Western region of British Rail. Very nice model. it's designed ready. I mean, obviously you're talking about older technology and model design with these, and so I do believe on these. I've had this one apart for a long time, but I believe the motor is directly over the bogie, so that's actually taken up one of the cab areas on these particular locomotives. But there's a certain amount of cab detail there and interior details. It's quite nice. I'm quite happy with the model. Actually, it's been running well. This is one of the models that were kept in the attic for years and years and years, awaiting me beginning my railways again. And obviously it was the lockdown for me, brought everything back again. This is why we're running this layout tonight, because of the I started this during the lockdown. Okay, we're going to bring our diesel railcar in just a moment. I'm going to have a look at another train. So these actually had quite a long and good service on the railways. We're going to go around one more time and then we'll bring her in. Oh yeah, and I do believe on these only one bogie is actually powered as well. The motor is directly above the bogie and is actually run with, it's similar to a Hornby Wingfield motor in these. But I think they're quite nice little runners. So I bought this new, I think, in the mid 1990s. Okay, we're just going to go focus on the junction over there. Then we just watch it go over the points. Okay, so we'll just bring her nice into the station. And she's just coming into my little station halt over there. There we are, and our passengers are safely at the station now. Now the next model is also by Lima, and is what they call a Bubblecar. Now the reason why they were called Bubblecars, or nicknamed Bubblecars, I think was because of the design of the cab. I think because it resembled a bubble car. And some of you will not remember bubble cars. They were really the first attempt to bring in motoring to the masses again. And I think one of the appeals of a bubble car was they could be driven on a motorcycle licence. Okay, but I think one of the drawbacks is the actual Bubblecar cars didn't have a reverse gear to begin with. But anyway, that's about let's stop talking about the cars and we'll come on to the actual Bubblecar train. A Class 121. They saw very long service. Now they were moved around a lot, and that was mainly because the lines they were built to run on were being closed almost as fast as they were being brought into service, I think. And then I go around a little bit there. That's it. Just change the points. Obviously these can be run in either direction, and that's another thing which these rail cars were going to alleviate, is that obviously if you had a locomotive you'd either have an auto push-pull service, or the locomotive would have to run around its train to pull out of a terminus, for example. But these were quite good for things like shuttle services. And where these appeared locally to me was on the Cleveland branch. Now these replaced the 14 XXs which were used on the Cleveland branch, but only for a relatively short period of time. Now it's my belief really that the beaching report came in, and I think that the axle, in my opinion at least, the axle swung a little bit too vigorously, and a lot of these rail cars were not allowed to show their true worth. These were brought, I think, were brought into the Cleveland branch in 1960. And the Cleveland branch itself was closed in 1966. They were just given 6 years. But then they were transferred onto other lines. These were also seen running on the Bridport branch, which ran from Maiden Newton to Bridport in Dorset. That line was closed then, I think, in the late 1970s. Took a long time to close that one. and they eventually ended up, I think, working on the in Buckinghamshire, right up until about 2014. So they had a very, very long career. They were very, very useful rail cars, these. Quite popular with their passengers. First generation of DMU, of course. Like I said, these were meant to replace steam engines on the branch lines. A lot of our branch lines were sadly closed, I said, and the very railways that these were designed to run on closed too quickly. Now these just don't very often get a run, these rail cars, because I very often concentrate on my steam fleet, of course. My steam fleet is a little bit more numerous anyway. I will be trying to bring some more diesels into the fold, and I may even go shock of shocks. I may go a little bit more modern image as well with some of my railways, but we'll see what happens in the future. Okay, so the Class 121 Bubblecars. Now I'm going to run this one in just a moment. And then we can have a look at our actual locomotives as well. Okay, so that's our Lima Class 121 Bubblecar. I think what I'm going to do, I mean, you probably saw that I've gone and bought a Lazy Susan now, which for showing off my new locomotives. And what I may do is revisit some of these rail cars and diesel locomotives, just so we can have a 360 view of them. Okay, so maybe I might bring in some short videos actually giving us a 360 view of these, because obviously you get to see them go around the track and everything else, but then the Lazy Susan does give you a chance to get a far better view of the whole locomotive, and gives you a full 360 degree view, really. So what we'll do, we'll bring this one into the station. I can imagine it pulling into somewhere like Clevedon. Now there is talk of the Clevedon branch reopening. I think some people are talking about it, but I don't think it's going to happen personally. A lot of housing estates have been built over the top, and I believe something like places like Asda and things like that are sitting on top of where the railway station used to be. So you know, it's all been built over now. The Clevedon branch. Some of it still exists. Some of the bridges and structures still exist. Where they can actually do it, they would actually have to build it on a different routes going into Clevedon, I should imagine. Now, we're going to reset the points now. We'll have a look at our first locomotive. We'll just come across there. Quick change of points there. And we'll be looking at the Warship diesel locomotive. These came about as part of the modernisation plan of British Rail. And under the modernisation plan, it was decided that steam would be phased out. Now, for a lot of people, obviously, the demise of steam is too much for some people to bear. Now that's it. We're just coming nice and slowly at the station now. We'll just speed up a bit there. Bit of a rush of blood there on there. Sure with the points, no problem at all. All of these Lima locomotives all handle points quite well. Okay, so we're just going to set the points now, and we'll have a running around the main line. Off it goes, the Lima warship. It's called Druid, that's the name of it. Now the warships are designed to replace the steam engines, okay? And they were seen all over the western region of the British Rail. Obviously in my neck of the woods it would have been seen speeding down towards the West Country, from Paddington and then down to past stations like High Bridge and on to places like Torquay, Paignton, Dawlish, Plymouth, Penzance, all the way down to Penzance perhaps. There was a bit of a rush to produce a lot of diesels. We experimented, a lot of experimental diesels came out during the 1950s and into the 1960s. Now a lot of people thought that the actual steam engines would never go. Okay, a lot of people honestly, truthfully thought that these diesel locomotives would never catch on. Okay, but it was decided, the decision was made to replace steam engines with diesel. Now that left the western region of British Rail the decision to make. What kind of locomotive traction would they go for, and where would they source their engines? Now the western region of British Rail was one of the wings which actually, well, really stayed almost intact. In fact, they expanded after the Big Four came about, and then even after nationalisation, the western region of British Rail more or less stayed more or less the same. And what they did, they went for an off-the-shelf solution. Now I can remember bringing this model back to work one day, and just showing it to one of my work colleagues, and he said, "It looks German," and she was quite right, of course. Yes, it's based on a German design. But they went for an off-the-shelf design of this. These locomotives were seen running on the German railways. Obviously they were redesigned to run on British track, but really they were based on the German locomotives. Class 42 warships. I think there was a further series of Class 43s which were built away from Swindon, but the Class 42s I believe were all built with Swindon Works. Now one of the things that as a consequence of going to for the German design was that these were diesel hydraulics, and it was really the seed of their demise in many ways, because it went the other way to the other railways, and they were deemed by British Rail to be non-standard. And in fact these were actually withdrawn in the 1970s. I think the first of these appeared in about 1958, and these were all gone by about 1972. So a very, very short life on the railways. Also, they had to come out with more powerful locomotives. More powerful locomotives were coming out, and they were going to supersede these. Now, if you want to get a reference of diesels, especially from the 1960s through to the 1970s, possibly the 1980s, then this book is a good recommendation for you. Diesels, A Driver of Reminiscences by L.C. Jacks. Okay, fascinating book. All of his experiences about driving the diesels. I mean, he started off working on steam engines, and he was actually involved in the transition from steam to diesel. Now, some people took like a duck to water to these new engines. They were looking forward to these new engines coming out. I mean, you can imagine driving a steam engine was very, very hard work. Very great pride was taken by the steam engine crews. But some people have thought being able to drive one of these diesels was, had quite a lot of appeal to it. But the coming of the diesels must have been a great shock to some of the top link drivers who had come up through the ranks maybe. Maybe they started off as cleaners, firemen, worked their way up through to be a driver, and then got onto the top link driving castles and kings on the crack expresses, and suddenly they're confronted by a diesel. And this is why a lot of some of the drivers couldn't cope with the transition from steam to diesel, and some were actually asked to be moved back onto other duties rather than drive these express locomotives. Like I say, some people took to them quite well, and they were looking forward to really getting their hands on all this power. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to run this around a little bit more, and then we'll pull her in. We'll have a little look at her as well. Now, this one is the H15 Druid, okay, Warship class, and you can see over in my station, possibly there, we'll zoom in a bit, got our naval personnel. So I think it's quite appropriate really that we've got our Warship class diesel pulling its train, and then we got the actual naval personnel there waiting for the train in the station. Okay, now we're going to run this one in just a moment. Now from the late 1950s through to the mid and the late 1960s were a time of very, very great upheaval for British Railways. Like I say, the transition from steam to diesel, and also of course the very controversial beaching report, which took effect in the mid 1960s, and we'll talk about the beaching report in a moment as well, because it got great relevance to our railways. We'll see now how we're doing for time. Now we're not doing too badly for time, so we're just going to get this one into the station now, and you will see over the points. Now bear in mind that these have only got, I think they've got pickups on all the wheels, but they're only driven from one end. But very nice. I think that's quite a nice well controlled drive into the station there. Now we're going to move on to Western Enterprise. And a source of head scratching for me. And I'll explain to you about that in just a moment. We're going to go into reverse. Okay, and then we'll just bring her out to the station. She goes. Western Enterprise. An experimental sand livery. Desert sand, I think, is the colour. And we just send it around the tracks. There we go. Quick change of points there. And away we go. Again, a model by Lima. All the models you see on here, apart from the coaches, are all by Lima. And these were designed either to either supplement or replace the warships, possibly. But certainly They're brought in to replace the Kings. The King class steam locomotives. Now, for a lot of people, it was very, very sad to see the demise of steam. The Western region of British Rail, it actually, I think they were anxious to be the first to get rid of all their steam locomotives. Done with great haste, of course. And it was designed to be the end of 1965. I think January 66 was going to be their diesel day. D-Day, diesel day. When they would have got rid of all those clunky old steam engines. Or that's how they viewed them. That's how some people viewed them. I didn't. Got rid of our lovely steam engines. Now, they were stopped from withdrawing all their steam, going fully for diesel, because the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway, which they got control of in 1959, and it was just, the actual Somerset and Dorset was supposed to be entirely closed. Now, because it was due to close, they let it run completely with steam. It never had diesels in regular service on the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway. And yes, indeed, it's obviously a very, very emotive subject for many, many people. And a lot of people were very, very sad when the Somerset and Dorset closed. Why was because they were steam powered, they were let down by a bus service, a replacement bus service, and so the steam powered Somerset and Dorset had to actually struggle on for another 3 months using steam engines very often in deplorable condition. Okay, and bearing in mind the Western region of British Rail got rid of their steam engines from everywhere else. Now this resulted in a lot of engines landing up in Di Woodham's yard in Barry, and obviously what that did too was actually kicked a lot of people spurred a lot of people into action to preserve locomotives. Now you had the Beeching report, which recommended closing half the railway system down, especially most of the branch lines, and the actual vision really was for goods to be mainly removed from the railways, apart from block trains and power station trains, and all of the goods was going to be moved onto the road. In fact, when a railway was due for closure or being run down, probably one of the first, a lot of the time what they did was they closed the goods yards first. On the Somerset and Dorset, they was shut off for goods 2 years before its final closure, as far as I can remember. But we got this Western Enterprise whizzing around the track. Oh, and the head scratching. Oh yes, the head scratching. I bought this locomotive during the lockdown. I've always wanted one in Desert Sand livery. I remember looking at these in various model rail exhibitions many years ago, and my chance to get one actually came up. So I got hold of it, started running it, and I thought, yay, I've got 1023 Western Enterprise. Now some of you, your ears will be twitching already if you're a Western fan, a classic G Western fan, because you know that number isn't right. In fact, the head scratching came around, obviously I'm thinking, well, who's right? I'm reading this wonderful book by L.C. Jacks, Diesel Driver of Reminiscences, and he's talking about seeing D1000, not D1023, and it was Lima. Lima actually made a mistake when they numbered this locomotive. In fact, D1023 was Western Fusilier. Okay, I've not renumbered the locomotive. I will do it at some point, but I think at the moment leaving it as it is it leaves as a kind of a talking point. And I think it's sad that Lima did make that mistake. I mean, how they were misled into believing that Western Enterprise was D1023. I just don't know how that would have happened. Now what we did, we just came up to the limit of recording on my camera, which is half an hour, and we're just going to run a few minutes over that, and we can have a better look at these locomotives in just a moment. And so this video is going to run on a little bit later. It's going to take me ages to render it on my computer. I think they're replacing my computer now. It won't run Windows 11, okay, and it is incompatible with that. I mean, it is a little bit old now, this computer, and if I produce this video now, it's going to take me at least a couple of hours to get it rendered. It's going to be midnight before I got it done. So, I mean, it's Saturday night as I'm filming this, and it's coming up to about 10:30 in the evening. So it's probably going to take me till way getting on for 1 o'clock before this video is actually ready to go out into the wild, so to speak. So you'll probably get to see this video either very late into the night if you're a kind of a night owl like me, or you'll be seeing this on Sunday. Now, another recommended book is Class 52's A Tribute to the Westerns. I'll just go get that book now and we'll have a look at it. Again, it's how you'll gain the knowledge about railways. I don't know everything about railways, and very often I think, well, how many were there of this class, how many were there of that class, and I've got to look it up very often before I actually shoot the videos. So I have to do my homework first, and I'm just going to get this book now if I can find it. Right, here we go. Sorry to cast a bit of a shadow over the layout there. Just move the camera away from the train. Class 52s, the Class 52s, A Tribute to the Westerns by David Burks, okay? Really good book to read, okay? And on here, on the actual, yes, on the cover of this is Western Courier in maroon. Okay, now Western Courier, there was a model of that by Hornby, and I've got that very model of Western Courier, but tonight we'll be looking at Western Enterprise in our Desert Sand livery. Now, I think again, these Lima trains, I mean, they stopped producing locomotives in about 2004, and they've been taken over by Hornby. In fact, you can see how the Hornby empire is sort of building up. Lima, River Rossi, Shuef, I think that is, and Electro Tread. If I pronounce those names wrong, please forgive me. But the subject of tonight is obviously Lima, and they're very much under Hornby's wing now. And I think Hornby have actually now taken over Oxford Rail. Okay, so Hornby have actually carried on some of these names. In fact, I think there are some Lima trains available, but I think they're more European than British thing. What they have done, they retooled a lot of these Lima designs for the railroad range. Less detailed, obviously, the more modern offerings. But you must remember that these locomotives were a bit. All of these designs were in the very earliest, latest. I think was 2004. They're Lima. That's when Lima ceased production in Italy. And this like I say, was a lockdown purchase. I bought this second hand on eBay, this locomotive going around now. Very pleased with it. Came from a dealer called the Modern Railway Emporium. And on my experience, I can recommend them. The other three locomotives, or railcars, you can look at the railcars, the Warship and the two diesel railcars were both pre-lockdown purchases. And I think I bought the Warship and the actual Bubblecar in the early 2000s, and I think I bought the actual green railcar that's over there in the mid 1990s. Okay, so what we're going to do now We're going to wrap things up because I'm going to put this onto the computer now and try to render everything. We'll just have a little closer look at our train, just a moment. Just over here, okay, we've got our, that's the Warship, that's Druid. Those are mainline coaches. I mean, they came in, some of them come in replica railways boxes, but they are really mainline coaches in reality. Very, very nice. I mean, I think they're 60-foot collet coaches, but they've been actually redecorated as BR Maroon, and they've got Western Region numbers on them, so they're actually appropriate coaches in my opinion. They went quite well with the colour of this locomotive. I think made quite a nice looking train, and I thought that the chocolate and cream coaches went very, very well with our desert sand Class 52 Western. That's Hornby coaches there, which are in the railroad range. One detail you will see missing from these, if you ever buy one, is you don't get steps. See, no step by the cab there or there, and it's the same on the Warship over there. And there is a reason for that, and I think that's because it's to save you having problems with the bogies actually swivelling round and colliding with the steps. Okay, obviously you're trying to get these to run on a 00 gauge, and they're running on quite tight curves. I mean, this is second radius curve here, and of course I think a lot of people might have had problems with the bogies actually colliding, so I think that's probably why they've left them off. Obviously you don't get all the separately fitted parts you might get on a modern locomotive. Then in my opinion there's less to fall off really, but it's a really nice model this, and I like the livery too. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to send it around the track once more. Now if you like what you see, press like and subscribe. Ding that bell, you know, you can be told of what made aware of more videos of mine. Thank you very much for your interest, and for those of you who stuck with me to the end, thank you very much for sticking with me to the end of this video. I know my videos do go on a little bit sometimes, and I do tend to go on a bit myself, don't I? So you know, that can be helped. I hope this has been of interest to you tonight. Been a Saturday night diesel running session for you to see, something a little bit different from my steam. I've got another steam locomotive coming for you to see in the near future, okay? I've ordered it. I'm going to keep it a little secret till it actually comes, and then you'll get to see what it is. And as soon as I got that, let's go and shit onto the track, so we're going to see how she runs, okay? And we'll be making a brand new video all about it, okay? So thanks very much for your interest and watching my videos. Thanks to all those people who have subscribed to my channel. Obviously your interest is very, very welcome and valued. Okay, and thanks very much for watching, and I should bid you farewell and good night.